so we've got some spindles in front of us today. I think what we're going to talk about is the differences between them and kind of what makes them tick and why you might choose one or the other over all of the other ones. There are lots of options and they're all beautiful and different in their own way. We're certainly not talking about every single spindle type out there because there are simply too many. I do not have the time, but we'll talk about the couple that I have in front of me. So right now, firstly, we're going to talk about top whorl spindles. This is probably the most common style of spindle that you're gonna see, construction, I guess, but you'll see these most often. So you see we've got the weight, the whorl at the top, and then you have your hook or whatever at the top, and then the whole rest of your spindle is down below in the shaft. So these guys are universal workhorses. They do perfectly well with just about anything. And then, of course, when you're loading it up, you will load underneath the whorl. And that's how a top whorl spindle works. It's super easy. This is, again, the most common one you'll probably see. Isn't this one cute? So cute. Alright, and next up is the exact opposite of what we were talking about. So first we were talking about top whorl, now we're talking about bottom whorl. So this one obviously doesn't have a hook nearest the whorl, it has a hook up at the top. A lot of the time when you're looking at a bottom whorl spindle, you won't even have a hook, you'll just have a notch at the top, and then you just do a half hitch and you get going. So basically the same idea. These are also workhorses. They can do anything that you like. This big guy, of course, is going to be much better suited to bigger yarns, but that's a whole other subject as far as spinning goes. But when you're loading this guy up, you're going to load right above the whorl. And then you spiral up the shaft and then right up off of the hook, and then you go, go, go. Within the same idea as a bottom whorl spindle as far as the construction goes and where the weight sits, you're also looking at Turkish spindles or crossarm spindles. So these guys, you can see really similar construction. This one's almost in the middle, but in general I would consider this more of a bottom whorl than a top whorl, obviously, because the yarn or your hook or whatever, this one has a hook, you see, and this one does not. So your knot would be up here and then all of the weight is down below. The difference between just a regular circular or square bottom whorl spindle in the Turkish is that you are actually going to wind in a specific way on a Turkish or crossarm spindle. So you'll go over 2 and under 1, and then over 2 and then under 1. And there are better videos on how to do that particular thing. I'm not going to go into it right now. But you end up at the end of it with like this nice little ready pull ball of yarn. You can pull right out from the outside, not the inside, and it'll just roll right off. And you can ply or you can use it as you please or do whatever you want. But Turkish are really neat for that reason. But yeah, their construction is similar to a bottom whorl because all of the weight is at the bottom. Now, we have a hybrid guy here in the middle. This is a shaft spindle. And this one is a top whorl. Looks perfectly like the other ones that we saw before. Hook at the top and then whorl just below. And you would wind underneath. But it also has a notch at the other end. So it can be used as a bottom whorl if you prefer. And then again, you would just wind right on top of the whorl here. As to whether you would use one or the other, it's totally up to you. Some people like the feeling of a bottom whorl spindle than they do a top whorl. Some people really prefer a top whorl because that's what they learned on, or they just like the feeling of it better. Between the two of those, as to whether you should choose top or bottom, it's totally up to you. There's no difference. Alright, and the third sort of category we're going to talk about today is supported spindles. So this is going to be a totally different manner of spinning than all of the rest of the ones that we saw. Those guys are all suspended in air, so when you're spinning, they're hanging out in the air doing what they're doing. Drop spindles are what those are. These guys are not drop spindles. You'll notice no hook, no notch, no nothing on this guy. Not to mention that because this is metal, this is quite heavy actually, so even if you tried to, your knot would probably slip right off and fall right to the ground, which is no good. And same for this one. That's a Takli, by the way. And Taklis sometimes will have like a little hook at the top, and that's fine. Still a Takli, still usable in that way. But you wouldn't necessarily drop it. Actually, you wouldn't drop it at all. You're very heavy and you fall right off, so it's not good. But you can see the same with this one. This is a Tibetan spindle. a Tibetan style spindle really. But this guy is also way down at the bottom, and then you also don't have any kind of notch or hook or anything at the top. It's just smooth, right off. And then you have this style, which is either a Russian style spindle or a wand style spindle, sometimes they're called. It looks very much like a wand, but these guys are also weight more or less at the bottom and then nothing at the top to hook onto or hold onto at all. But you also, in tandem with these, obviously because they're supported, need to have some kind of bowl or dish or something to have them in while you're spinning. So you would have them like this, you give them a flick, and then, I don't know if you can see how well that rotates quite well, in this bowl here. You can certainly try to do it on just a tabletop. It's not going to work very well because you need to have them, you know, something to stay centered into, which is why a bowl works so well. And we have little bowls that are made specifically for that. It has a little notch there in the bottom or a little scoop there in the bottom, keeps them nice and centered in your bowl. But the difference between whether or not you would choose something like this as opposed to a drop spindle is if you have a yarn that is very delicate, this is a really good option. It takes most of the weight of what you're spinning off of the yarn itself that you're trying to spin and actually sets it into that bowl, as you can imagine, because it's being held up by a bowl or something, or your hand or whatever. But the difference between these guys is also kind of like the rest of the spindles. You would choose one based on weight and based on spin type and how you feel about it and how good it feels in your hands. There are a couple of differences why you would choose one over the other. This one, for example, spins really, really fast, but it doesn't spin very long because it doesn't have very much weight. In the same way, the Takli is like that. They spin really, really fast, but they don't spin very, very long. And then you have something that's kind of hitting it in the middle with this Tibetan style spindle. You also see some teacup style spindles or even some bead style spindles that spin a little bit longer, but still spin quite fast, just not quite as fast as those other two. And this is kind of to cut it down the middle. You want a little bit longer spin, but you don't want to sacrifice the speed as much as possible. And so really those are the only differences between supported spindles as far as why you would choose one over the other, is to get a longer spin or a faster spin. So yeah, it's main three sort of categories, I guess, of spindles. There are a whole ton more that don't look anything like this. But these are the main ones that we see often, and these are the ones that we have the most questions about. So that's why we're doing a little overview of them. And of course, always, if you have questions, let us know. But there they are. Have some fun spinning.